Last week, we dove into one of my favorite topics, vignettes. If you missed that episode, definitely go check it out. Now, in this week's episode, my guest is Heather from Create Your Own Cozy. Many of you may already know her from her YouTube channel. She is a chronic DIY girl who loves to thrift and upcycle for her home and vendor booths. I cannot wait to get this interview started.
Welcome to the Rescued and Upcycled podcast with weekly inspiration, tips on trying new techniques, and overall real talk about owning your own DIY business. Now here's your host, Sonnet Ullenbrock.
Welcome to Rescued and Upcycled. I'm your host, Sonnet Ullenbrock. I want to thank you all for joining me on my podcast. This new journey has been so fun, you guys, and I'm really starting to love this new chapter in my small business. Now, in today's episode, I am so excited to introduce you guys to my good friend, Heather Davis of Create Your Own Cozy. Heather is very well known for her YouTube channel, where she takes thrifted items and upcycles them for her vendor booths. Welcome, Heather. Thank you so much for joining my podcast.
Thank you for having me, Sonnet. I feel so honored.
Oh, well, thanks. I'm so glad you're here today. And to give you guys a little background, how I first met Heather was a couple years ago, actually, when I was recapping my end of the year goals. I was talking about, things I wanted to accomplish for the new year. And one of my goals was that I wanted to collab with another content creator. So I just tossed out the idea, like, is anyone interested? Get back to me. And I honestly didn't think anyone would. But Heather did reach out along with several other creators. And you guys all know Brendan, my friend. Him and I, on a lunch hour, we stalked all the individuals that reached out. And Brendan's like, I really like this Heather. I think I think she'd be perfect to collab with. So I tucked away that info for the time when I was actually ready to do the collab. And I just kind of walked away from that because I wanted to collab. I think it was more like mid-year. And then I put out the next time when I finally met her was when I threw out to my audience that I wanted to have like a private discussion and I was going to be talking about my membership group. And Heather joined that group. And during that meeting, we totally hit it off right away. And so that's really how I discovered Heather. For my viewers and listeners who may not already know you or haven't had the opportunity to have found you on YouTube, tell us a little bit about yourself, Heather.
I came from the corporate world. And when I was pregnant with my oldest, we decided it would be time to stay at home with my kids. And that was like over 15 years ago. Okay. So I stayed at home with her and had 2 other kids. So a total of 3 kids. Was a stay-at-home mom. That is what I wanted to do my entire life. And I realized that there was something still missing, that I kind of lost myself in motherhood. So that's when I started to be creative again, making time for myself. And I mean, there are a lot of steps that we'll probably talk about to get to where I am today, but like, it was a journey that I needed to go on. And I couldn't be happier.
Yeah. So, you started being creative and making things, I'm assuming for your home at first. And then how did it transition into because we all know you for your YouTube channel. I mean, how did you finally decide I'm going to go start my YouTube journey?
Well, it did. I was doing it for myself. We were in a house where we loved the house, but we couldn't really afford to just go out and buy new stuff. So I started, I taught myself how to make my dining room table and just would do those types of things. And, my friends were always when they had projects going on, they would always call me and say, how would you tackle this? And I was going through a book called The Artist Way, which is very much trying to figure out your inner artist and what you're kind of made for. And with that friend, Jen, she's my Brendan. It was like, you know what? Why don't you, because she calls me all the time, like, what would you do with this? And she's like, you really should like record this. And I was like, no way. Because at the time I struggled so much with what I thought of myself. I'm like, nobody would ever want to hear what I have to say. And she's like, well, while it's obvious to you how you would tackle this, there are so
Mhm.
many people out there that it's not obvious to. So that's kind of how the thought came in my mind. And I like to churn things for a while. So it probably churned for a solid year before I actually hit record.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been an amazing outlet. So that's how I started.
Awesome. So I guess how did you finally figure out your niche, for your channel? Like did you niche cuz it sounded like you were doing how-tos at first and then all of a sudden it like transitioned into, your booth and like thrifting and upcycling. So how did you niche down then?
Well, it kind of evolved. And I struggle with the niche part because I don't have like a particular look. I have an eclectic look. I know what makes me feel cozy. And whenever people would come to my home, they would say that this is a cozy space. I just want to sit down and put a blanket on. And so I wanted to find ways to create that cozy both in your home and in your life. So while I don't like have a specialty of, people know you for barn quilts and colors, like I want to be a niche where I'm encouraging people to take their space and make it their own and that they can do it. And if I can do it, they can do it. And I think
Right.
that's kind of my niche of encouragement and work through the mistakes and make it what you want.
Right. Aw, I love that. And that's really how did you actually come up with your name then? Like, create your own cozy? Is it just because you wanted to create that cozy environment or, uh,
It
I
really
know
is, because I moved
okay,
from that other house and, I moved to this house and it was new construction, and I think I did it kind of in a way where I was like, wishful thinking, like, "It's new construction, I wanna make it cozy," and, when it was time to do the name for the business, like, I had people saying, "Do you want my feedback?" I'm like, "Nope, I already know what it is." Like, I didn't even wanna hear it from anyone else. My husband I think, was a little disappointed he wasn't part of it, but it just felt like home to me. So, yeah, when I think of cozy, it just yeah.
aw, I know, yeah. So, I talked about my struggles to hit that record button and what challenges or, and obstacles that I had to, overcome with being a content creator. Did you have some of those same challenges or issues?
Yes. I've listened to all of your podcasts, obviously, and to hear how like you like came up with a plan, you did a bunch of research, you had goals. Like I feel like I came at this YouTube thing in a completely opposite approach. Like I did not have like my goal was to find a creative outlet for me and maybe encourage other people who had lost themselves in motherhood, right? I was struggling a lot with what I thought of myself. So I think that was my biggest struggle. When we would FaceTime people, I would put my kids in front of the camera instead of myself. So the idea of putting myself to be seen, like I wouldn't even do this with family. So like that's crazy. So when I started recording for my channel, I was like, you know what? You can hide, Heather. You can just do your hands, you can do your voice, like you don't have to show your face. And that's how I like started the recording. And then throughout the editing process, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so difficult. It'd be easier if I just put my stinking face in front of the camera. And
Right.
that's when I realized even if I want to hide, I'm still going to be here. I'm still going to show up. I'm going to, whatever weight I'm at, whatever emotional status I'm at, I just want to show up and be authentic. And that's how I kind of work through that fear.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's funny that being authentic and just showing up, and there were times too, like early on, I'm like, I cannot even believe I look like that in front of a camera because I looked horrible. But I was like, no, this is like who I am. And
Yeah.
even to this day, it's not like I get all made up and stuff for the camera. I just am, and I just go like that's who you're getting, even like on my lives and stuff. So I love it that being authentic is so important.
Yeah.
Now, one thing too, like in our group, we talk a lot about the imposter syndrome. Has
Mm.
that been something that you've dealt with?
Yes. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Um, the thing is, like, do I care what other people think of me? Yes, but I think I'm most challenged by what I think of myself. So, like, just thinking who would want to do what I'm doing or to find out what's happening in my life or to hear me talk. Sometimes I edit and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, be quiet." Like, I'm tired of hearing my own voice. So,
Right.
like, just that learning self-love and appreciating, you know what? Just be you. Um, if people love you, they're your people. Like,
Right.
just getting to that point was a good step for me.
Right. I know, I totally hear you because and like I talk about comments and receiving those unkind comments. Like I don't think a lot of these people that are watching us understand what it takes to be a content creator, to have the courage to hit that record button and to really put ourselves out there with our projects because there are days that I show up and I am not feeling creative and I have to put out a video because I have put out a schedule and for them to say unkind comments, it's so hard and it makes us all feel that way then like we are imposters, but really we're not. So,
Well, and one of my, I think, favorite mean comments I've ever gotten is someone said, "Wow, you look really uncomfortable in front of the camera." And it was a week that I was uncomfortable in my own skin. And I said, "You know what? I am uncomfortable today, but I did it anyway."
mhm.
And like
And you showed
encourage
up.
you I encourage you to try doing something you're afraid of,
Right.
like, and I was like, and it didn't tumble, like, I didn't tumble to the ground from that comment. I felt stronger because of it, because it's like, you know what? I did face something that you're not always feeling like being in front of a camera or being transparent, but
Right.
that's what I've committed, and in my world is just to be transparent. If I'm having a tough day, I'm having a tough day,
Right.
and the people on the other side are like, "Me too."
I
You
love it.
know?
I know, because when you get your people that stand behind you, will stick up for you. Like now too, when I receive some not so nice comments, I know that some of my viewers are going to be there to come right back at them and say, like, be nice. Whatever. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah,
always there to,
totally.
stand up for me. So I love it. Um, so we're talking about being inspired and having difficulty some days showing up. What makes you feel inspired or like what inspires you when you're coming up with different video topics and ideas?
Um, One of the things I learned about doing the artist way is that my artistic side, I call her a moody artist. She is a very moody artist. Like, if I'm not feeling something that day, like, I can't just say, "Well, this is what we're doing today." Sometimes that's what I have to do, but a lot of times I'll, like, have a piece of furniture and just like the one in my entry right now, that, like, I just stare at for a second. I'm like, "What do you wanna be?" Like,
Mhm.
it's just like that idea of redemption. It's just, I love the idea of redemption. And, okay, this is the life you've lived this whole time. How can you be even more amazing than you originally intended, and go bless somebody and be in someone else's space or even in my own home, like, it's, the pieces usually speak to me,
Right.
and that's why I like to shop.
I know. I know. I
Because there's talking going on all around me. I just have to, like, zero in and be like, "This is what's talking to me this week."
I
Yeah.
know. It's funny because my husband's like, "You do not need to go thrifting. There is no need for you to buy one more piece. You have a ton out in the garage in your storage unit." And I'm like, "But they're not speaking to me. I need something new." And then it's amazing. I go thrifting and it's like, "Oh," like
I do know.
and like all of a sudden I'm like, "Oh, it just like rejuvenates my creative energy." So I totally feel you.
But at least, this is where I get into trouble. At least it's in the, $2 to $20 range, and it's not like a Nordstrom problem, you know?
Right. Yes, exactly. Like, it wasn't like, "I need a new outfit today, and I only want totally high end." No, I'm going to go to a
Exactly.
thrift store and buy a couple things that are probably under $20. So, yes, I
Exactly.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So out of, who, I guess, the next question I really want to ask you is like, who are you most inspired by?
I mean, I started thinking about the qualities that inspired me, and authenticity, um, grit, um, just running a business well and treating people well and not being threatened by others. So quite honestly, Sonnet, you inspire me.
Oh,
Like,
thank you.
I
I mean,
mean, you kind of fit into all those categories, which is why I know that we would love each other. um, I just like there's a rising tides raise all ships. And there's this feeling of bringing others with you that I appreciate in people that I want to look up to or to emulate. So like
mhm,
that's just being authentic and community minded is really important to me.
yeah. Oh,
I
absolutely.
also love Joanna Gaines. I mean, come on.
Well,
Um,
I have been called the Joanna Gaines of the Midwest. So
oh my gosh, what a compliment.
I know, so one of my viewers called me that, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna take that as a
I
compliment."
will take that all day long. Like the
I
fact
know.
that like she's still family minded. I mean, she's working her booty off, but
Yes,
like
yes,
I feel like she's still grounded. She's firm but grounded and good with the way that, as far as I know, treats
yeah,
people. You know, we haven't talked lately, so
I know, I know. I watch her too, and I love her, so
yeah.
yes. But thank you. I mean, I wasn't expecting, like, to throw a bone and you to say me, but I love it.
Yeah.
But, honestly, though, like, I feel like there's so many creators out there that only show up for themselves, and they don't want to help the community around them. And that is one thing I created my membership group because I want to help others, and I want everybody to be successful.
Yeah.
So I am all about collabing and just really encouraging others to be successful and help them. So
Well,
thanks.
you're not threatened by other people's successes.
No,
You're not thinking, "Oh, they're gonna take away my people." No, like, if someone you know that if someone likes you, then maybe they could like someone else that you like as well. I
right.
mean, yeah.
Yes. And that is a great thought. Like, so many other creators, I think, feel threatened. Like, they think that if we know or they know, like, these viewers know about other content creators, they're not going to watch you. They're not going to, maybe buy from you or what have you. But honestly, there's so many people to go around. So
Yeah,
I mean, and why not help others be successful too. So
exactly.
yes. Um, now we had talked about, the collaboration, that we were, going to do. And I feel that took courage, for you to reach out, to me and ask me to, do a collab with you. What made you decide to send that initial email? Like, I'm so glad you did, but like, how did you find that courage to do that? Because I don't think I could have done it when I
I
was first
think
starting.
well, because remember you said you asked and then you waited and you asked again. I think
Yeah.
saying it the second time so
Okay.
I was like, "Did she forget that I said it?"
Oh, that's
But I was, like, still me because I knew, like, I wanted to learn from you, and I knew that we had similar interests, similar like, different styles, but
mhm.
similar people like, we would draw similar people, and, so I think listen, I think it's a little bit easier to be courageous digitally,
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
no, I
Um
do. I do, I do.
Oh, but that second one took a little bit more like, "Did she forget about me? Because it's still me, I still wanna do this."
It's
So,
funny.
I don't know, like, it's just one of those things that I do like to say, "But did you die?" Um, I have been doing things that scare the tar out of me, and I don't die, and I
Right.
survive it, and, like, look what came out. The worst that could happen is she says, "No, it's not a good fit." The best could happen is yes, and a friendship could form. Hi, that's worth the risk, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't forget about you for, the first time you reached out, but I was like, okay, now what do I do? Like, I am just not ready. So do I reach out to like, these
Yeah.
people or, so I'm like, I'm just gonna, put it in my pocket. And when I'm ready, I'm going to reach out. And then I'm juggling a lot of balls all the time.
Really?
So yeah. So then when I had my other membership group that I wanted to get that going too, and that was another project. And so I was so excited when you did reach out that second time and we were able to, hit it off. And then once you became part of the membership group, I still remember during a meeting, you were telling us all about a conference that you were going to attend. And you're like, you should go, you should go. And I thought about it. And then I'm like, you know what? I should.
Yeah.
And so that I decided to go. And I just remember, I said, let's collab. We always talked about it, but let's go on this trip together and we'll collab. And
Yeah.
I still remember when we were trying to work out all the details about flying in, and you're like, where are you staying? I'm like, well, I haven't figured out that detail. And you're like, yeah, I think this might sound kind of weird, but do you want to be roomies? I'm like, oh, sure, that would be fine. So,
That was harder. It was harder to ask, do you want to room with me than to do the collab, where at least like that's a bigger commitment. We've never met.
yeah.
Hey, let's share a sleeping space. But like I knew we would hit it right off. And like you hopped in the car at the airport and I'm like, I feel like we should hug. We've never met in person.
I know. It was awesome. Yes, you picked me up at the airport and
Yep.
then we went right into our collab. So
Yeah.
what we agreed to do is we were going to go on a thrifting mission together, and we headed over to, I think you had the Goodwills picked out, I think is you figured out, and we finally hit one up. And Heather had a car, you guys, so she could take back much bigger items.
I believe I brought home a chair.
You did.
Bring that home on the airplane.
Yes, yes. And I found some items too, but one of the items was this brass. Actually, when I was looking back at my early on videos, I'm like, oh my gosh, the brass. I can't even think of like a brass stand.
Yeah.
It was so heavy, and I had it jammed in my purse. And I remember just as I was going to get on the airplane, the strap of my brand new purse broke because it was so heavy. And I'm like, how in the world am I going to make it through like the airport? And I was like freaking out, but I made it. And I just remember like as I was pushing my, I didn't check a bag. I carried it all on. So I was pushing it. That brass candlestick kept hitting everybody's elbows as I was going back to my spot. And I'm like, oh gosh, I feel so bad. But it was,
I wanted that brass stand so bad, but I was fangirling still that I was with you. And I was like, I'm going to give her the first right to it. Like,
right. It's still in my studio.
I was
So
going to say, that's a good find. It was a good
yes, yeah. So it was something I try not to keep as much stuff for myself, but that is a remembrance of when we traveled, and
find.
I know. So I
That's
have it in
good.
my studio. So when in October when you come, you'll have to well, I'm going to have you over and you'll have to take a look to see where I have it in my studio. So
Yay, I can't
I
wait.
yeah.
I cannot wait.
So, with our collab, what is one takeaway that you can tell our viewers about doing collabs?
Well, I think one of the things that I was very thankful because you had a larger audience than me. You still do. But like for you to be willing to carry kind of the weight of, hey, I'm willing to show you to my people. I don't have as many people to show you to. Like
Yeah.
to find somebody who's willing to do that and believes enough in you, like that just puts some wings or some sail in your wings, like
Yeah.
it just really helped me, I think, with my confidence. But something that I've really enjoyed from it is the friendship. And I would just encourage, whether it's a collab or someone that's in the same stage of business that you're in, to have someone that you could say, hey, have you been dealing with this? Or, oh my gosh, I'm so worn out. And someone else to say, you know what, keep doing it. You can just get your video done, or whatever the challenge of being, or a bad comment. Like, it's nice to be able to have someone who understands how that can derail you or
Yeah.
how the good comments can help make you feel like you have a community. So like I think that is helpful for your longevity.
Right.
Have other people to go through it with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is something I absolutely love about the membership group is that it's a like-minded community of creators and small business women that really have each other's backs. And you show up and you're having a bad day, and believe me, we're all there to encourage and support you and pick you up and throw you back on your feet. So I love it.
Agree. And don't make you get back on your feet right away. Like it's okay. You can
Yeah.
have a discouraging week, but next week we're going to check in with you again.
Right.
And like that is that community has been really good to check in with growth, to check in. Um, just, I didn't start this to start a small business. A small business kind of grew out of it.
Hmm.
But have you, who is very business minded and is like, let's do some goals, and be like, well, that's a great idea. I never would have made myself do that. It's an accountability with like minded people. And no matter what type of community you can get yourself into, get into a community.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I
Yeah.
agree. Um, just having people there to bounce ideas, like you said, off of is so critical.
Yeah.
I bounce ideas off of all of you. Like, I'm always like, okay, you guys, I'm stuck. I need help. What do you guys think? And no matter how big or how small, you need it. You need
Yeah.
other individuals to help you propel yourself. So,
Yeah.
so because, we kind of, we talked about the collab and the October event. Now, you are such a great teacher and you do inspire so many on your YouTube channel that when I decided to host my very first event, I knew right away that I would love to have you be one of the creators. And so we are going to be doing another collab. So if you guys don't already know, Heather has agreed to teach a class at my October event. So I am super excited to do another collab. So how are you feeling about tackling this new way of teaching?
Nervous. I'm not going to lie. Um, but I'm going to do it anyway. One of the things that I love is when I get to meet a viewer and have that personal connection. So I'm looking forward to being able to meet people and teach in person and see feedback. Because sometimes when you're doing the video, you don't know if people are going to connect with it. So to have that connection and I don't know, facial feedback.
Right.
So that sounds exciting. Like I think it is this particular topic has come up a couple of other times since I agreed. So I'm like, okay, God, I hear you.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those things like this is the next step. I'm going to do it. I might do it scared, but I'm going to do it. Like I'm so excited. I would not want to miss it. Now, that imposter syndrome maybe crept out a little bit when I start seeing the lineup of people and thinking, what would I have to offer? But I'm just going to be myself and offer me. So,
Right. Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. I mean, and yes, I would not have asked you if I didn't think that you were capable. And I definitely wanted to push you out of your comfort zone. So I do that a lot.
Yes,
I,
you do.
I do.
You
That
do.
I hear that a lot out of my members is that I push them to do something that they're just like, oh, I don't want to do it, but I'm
A
going to because
lot of reels on it. That's
I
a
know.
lot of reels.
I know. I will never forget that. I'll never live that one down. So it was a lot of reels for me too. So for those that are not knowing what we're talking about, I did a reels challenge in my membership group, and it was a lot of reels that they had to do within I think it was 2 weeks.
2 weeks, but 3
Yep.
a day
Yeah, 3 a day.
on 3 different platforms.
Yes.
I mean,
And
it's 3 reels a day that you could spread out, but it was like, I realized that like I can go for a little while, but then it's like, "Oh my gosh, what else am I gonna say?" And it had
right.
you look at content around you differently, and it was a good challenge. Like, we all saw business growth. We saw sales as a direct result, so Thank you,
Right.
fearless leader, for doing some of the hard challenges for us.
And now it doesn't seem too hard to put out 1 reel a day.
I could do one.
I know. So, but at the end, I was like, "Oh my gosh." I was even racking my brain, like, "What am I gonna talk about or what am I gonna do?" I mean, I too was looking at content very differently by the end. So, um, but with that, now you also mentioned that you may start hosting some local classes, which is super exciting. I think in the last membership meeting you mentioned that. So, how did that all like transpire? And
I just opened a new space up in Dawsonville, Georgia, where I'm selling the IOD products. And I was showing the owners, because it's mainly an antique store. There weren't a lot of makers. And I was showing the owners what is possible with IOD, because they're like, we're not creative. And that's why I love those products so much, because even the people that say I'm not artistic, like, here are some tools that you can create still something that you could be like, hey, I made that. So as I was showing them how I did a couple of my projects, they're like, you know what, you really should. We're going to have our grand opening, because they just opened a new location, and we'll start advertising that you're gonna do a little workshop. I was like, okay. And then I was in my other booth, and this lady walked up and asked if anyone ever did workshops. And she has a barn that happens to be 4 minutes from my home. And so we still need to talk. She has to have an event. And I'm like, okay, God, like, that's 3 different opportunities to do some type of workshop. Like, I'm going to listen, even if I'm
absolutely,
scared.
even you're
Yeah.
gonna do great. You know
Yeah.
it. You will be fine.
Well,
But
I mean, I was scared to hit record. I was scared to have a booth. Like, all of these stepping outside and doing stuff that you're not used to is scary. And every time you're like, hey, I survived that, it makes it a little less scary, you know?
right, you didn't
Yeah.
die.
I didn't die.
You didn't die. So when you first joined the membership, now that you mentioned you came up with your second booth,
Yeah.
I can't remember. Did you have a booth when you joined the membership?
I had just opened. Didn't we start
Oh,
summertime?
yeah, I was trying to remember when I believe it was because
I think I opened in March.
okay,
And so, like, when you started saying, "Hey guys, do you wanna," like, when you asked for people for feedback, and I was
yeah,
like, "I am brand new to this. This woman has got some hustle. I need to learn from her in the business side," because I have a business degree in finance, but I haven't really used it. I did more meeting planning when I was in the corporate world. So, while I could put my business mind around the booth, I didn't know how to do it, especially in the just me, without people to bounce it. So I was like, I'm in on this group. And just basically my whole first year was, let's see how this goes,
right.
you know?
Yes, and I think one thing that your viewers really loved,
Mhm.
was that you were an open book about what you were making, what you were putting into the booth, what challenges, you did a video on it. So,
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
did
was that
monthly videos. Yeah, for the first year, I did them like every month. I was like, this is what I sold. This is how much I made for these particular items. And I mean, so far, I've never paid rent.
right?
Um,
That's awesome.
right? I mean, that's something to celebrate.
Yeah,
But it was definitely a learning process. And I went through those nitty gritty details because I felt like it was a way for me to know how to shop. Like, this is profitable to go get this because you can sell it for this much. And this thing, not so much. Maybe you don't need 12 rolling pins because you don't.
right,
You don't sell so many rolling pins. But it was helpful for me to get down to the nitty gritty. So I did those videos kind of for me to make me do the wrap ups. I
yep,
don't know that I need to go down that deep anymore because I've learned enough to know what's kind of selling in my area. But I also know, like, don't act like you know everything because it could change. Like,
right,
you have to be very flexible and learn what your customers want.
exactly.
So yeah.
Yes. What made you decide that you wanted a vendor booth? I mean, one day you just went, "I'm gonna open up a vendor booth?"
Oh, um, well, I did things opposite, right? Like, I had a YouTube
Yeah.
channel where I'm making 5 items a week, right?
Right.
There's only so many places in this house for 5 items or furniture upcycle. So I was like, you know what? I would like to sell these things. And then in my 20s, like my idea of fun was a cup of coffee and walking around an antique mall. And I remember thinking, I wonder how profitable these are. I wonder how this type of business is. And then I was like, well, why not figure it out? Why not see how it is and see if it's for me? So
Right.
like those two things together, and then having the flexibility of my third kid finally being in school full time, like that's all
That's a
just,
whole different game.
yeah,
A game
it's a
changer.
whole different game. Yeah, for sure. So
Yeah.
this is my outlet while they're at school, and it's been really great. I'm
Right.
on what, 2.5 years now at the one place. So
Okay.
at Angry Mama's Antiques and Interiors.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
So how has YouTube then helped with your vendor booth and the business there? Do you drive people, do you think, to your vendor booths?
I think I could say that there were probably 20 different people who have said they've driven to my booth because of YouTube. Um, Maybe more. But I think the thing that's driving them to my booth more is the fact that I'm a retailer for DIY paint now. I think using it and sending them there specifically for the paint, and they
Mhm.
happen to buy the other things that I make. Um, I would say YouTube has helped. I don't know that I would say, whoa, my sales are crazy
Okay.
because of that. Yeah.
I have noticed a huge like influx of people. It was like when I started offering DIY paint and I made that
Yeah.
announcement on my channel, that's when I think people they're like, "What? Oh my gosh." And people like I would hear the feedback from people at the Yield Goat. People are coming from all over because you have the DIY paint or they want to see your booth. And so I was wondering if that you saw a correlation to that as well.
Well, I guess like the other day, I came in to do something. They're like, one of your followers was just here. So I need to remember those things too. Like, yes. But I don't know. I still have a hard time that they would be there because of
Right.
me. It's more because of my paint.
Yes. It's funny too because I'll let you say that because of you, but I like people will show up like even at Water Street Vintage, for instance,
Mhm.
the lady's like, "Oh my gosh, you are famous." And I'm like, "I'm not famous." And she's like, "No, but people will be coming in and they'll be like, 'Where's Sonnet?'" And
Right.
they're like, "Yeah, she's not here. This is just where she has her booth. She is not physically here all the time." But
Right.
it just makes me laugh. Or when I go to the goat too, and I always walk in and say hello to everyone and people that are there and they recognize my voice. They won't even see me, but they will recognize my voice. I just remember the first time that I met Lori. She's part of our
Yeah.
membership group. I'm like, hello. And then all of a sudden Lori's like, Sonnet? And she's like, acts like, I'm like, hello. I'm thinking to myself, do I know you?
And
But she knew me. So it
that's
was,
just a whole different side of YouTube that
yeah,
is uncomfortable at times in a good way, but like
yeah,
it's just me. It's just
right.
me. Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I know, and I have to remind myself of that too, like or like remind them as they're meeting me. I'm like, I'm just me. I'm just a normal everyday gal, So,
Yeah.
um now now that you've added your products to your vendor booth like we were talking about,
Yeah.
I mean, really, what made you initially make that decision in your business to, like have like the DIY paint at Angry Mamas? I mean, what was like propelled you to make that decision?
Well, I started using some of the big box store paints in the beginning, like you said in your
Yeah,
I was like, that's very similar. And it's like I wasn't seeing the longevity in my products. And I wanted to be authentic and I wanted to be transparent. And it's like I started using better products, and then people would be like, well, can I buy them from you? And I'm like, well, why not?
right.
Like, why wouldn't I do this? First of all, like I could get the product at a lower price and to be able to provide it. And then at the same time, the local DIY stockist dropped this territory.
Oh,
And yeah, so I was like, hi.
I'll do it.
Yeah. So it was just like a no-brainer. And then Debbie, who she is as a human, that's very important to me that the people running these businesses treat their retailers well and there's integrity behind the product. So like DIY paint was a no-brainer. No-brainer.
Absolutely. She has
Yeah,
such a good heart.
such a
I
good heart.
love her. She definitely sold me, and, like, when on my last one of my last, podcasts when I was talking about, like, how I discovered her, I didn't even know she was the owner,
I know, I
and
heard that. I was like, "That's so funny." You're like, "I
I
think she owns this."
well, it was like I felt like an investigator because she doesn't openly actually on some of those videos ever say like, like, "I own DIY paint," or whatever.
Right,
She's
right.
just, like, showcasing the products and, like, her beautiful personality and, and then all of a sudden she started dancing at the end, and I'm like and she dances and she tells these stories and she just sucked me into, like, the next video, and so when I finally discovered it, I was like, "Oh, I feel so silly now." But I'm so glad that I was able to get to see that side of her before I even really made the decision I was gonna, sell DIY. It made that whole decision so much easier. So,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So what has been one of your biggest challenges, with booth life or your small business? I mean, have you figured out like was there one challenge that was really hard to overcome?
I would say balance. Um, while the kids are at school, I have like 9 o'clock by the time the middle schoolers are at school, and then my youngest gets home at 2:30. That's
Yeah.
my window of like everything, right? So I'm
Mhm.
choosing for that to be like my small business because again, this started as an outlet and it's turned into a business. And my challenge, quite honestly, are summers and breaks.
Okay.
Because we don't have it built in, it's like, well, here are all the kids. And so I'm trying to like, here's the thing. My kids are the most important. I stayed home for a reason, but having them see me do this has been like they've been like my best audience.
Right.
And like I remember I did with my second live that you made me do. Um, but my 14-year-old was taking the video of it
Okay.
because my phone was broken on one side. And another one of my viewers, Leanne, she's in our group, she came up to be there for it and she took a picture of Piper taking a video of me. And to
Oh,
see Piper's face, like she was proud of me.
yes.
Like so that sometimes I'm like, it's their summer too, but then I'm like, you know what? They need to see mom working hard for something. They need to
Mhm.
have skin in the game for this business because all three of them are super creative. So if you want to be in this, have this outlet, like welcome. I want you to
Right.
be involved. So yeah, balance has been a challenge.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I hear ya. Um, absolutely, and I love that too about your kids and really, seeing your kids seeing you do this.
Yes.
Because it's funny that you mentioned that on Saturday. I like my youngest is 16 and it's hard like now because she's so independent and she's always with her friends and or she is in what I like to call her dungeon, which is her bedroom. She like
Yeah.
comes home and she's up there and I'm like, "Get out of there. Come and like mingle with us." And so I said, "Do you want to drive with me?" I needed to head to the store down. It was like 20 minutes away. And she's like, "I guess." And so she gets in the car. And then she's like, "Oh, yeah, I wanted to mention, like, what did you do recently? Or what did you do? Because three people came up to me last week and they're like, 'Your mom is so famous.'" She's like, "I was thinking, what did she do now?" I'm like, "Really? I didn't do anything." She goes, "I was thinking you tagged me in a post." And I'm like, but
Oh,
it was like, she is proud, but she's also like, "Oh gosh, now my mom is on TV," or not TV, but
yeah.
on YouTube. But her friends, oh, they all follow me. And she's like, "Oh gosh, that's all they talk about, mom." I'm like, "Oh, just live it, Caitlin, live it, I don't know.
Exactly. My Piper says her friends will turn me on at school, and I'm like, "First of all, how are you playing?" So she'll hear my voice, and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh," like
I love it.
but she says it like she's embarrassed with a hint of, "I'm proud of you."
That's
So,
exactly it,
you know?
because yes, now that you mentioned that too, she'll say like, "Oh, we in whatever class," it was like some type of business class they were taking. She's like, "I told them you're on YouTube and then they streamed you on." I'm like, it almost embarrassed me more. I'm like, "Caitlin,
Don't do that.
I don't wanna be streamed," you know? And
But
what did I do? I think what you did, you probably told more people and then they're all talking. So,
exactly.
I don't know. But yes, balance though
Balance.
has been huge for me as well. So I totally feel you and it's gonna get better is what I, would say. You're gonna learn balance better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like balance in whatever stage we're in. I mean, I have
Mhm.
a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 9-year-old.
Mhm.
So, I mean, the permit is coming.
Right.
Like it's starting to edge that direction. And, like mom needs stuff too. And
Right.
the great thing about this is it is flexible. So you can focus on your family and do the business.
Right.
Like, that's what I love. I don't have to go to a 9 to 5 job. Like, this is something that I love to do. It doesn't feel like a job, and there's flexibility.
I
Yeah.
love that too.
Yeah.
I know people are like, "Oh, you're working. Do you feel like you're working more?" And I'm like, "I don't because I made like okay, maybe they see it that way, but I
Yeah,
still was working my 9 to 5 job, plus I was doing this, and so I
totally.
think I was working more before, but,
Yeah.
and it doesn't feel like work, so that's what I love about it.
Yes.
Um, so what's the most important thing that you've learned from having your vendor booth, do you think?
To be flexible. Like, I think when I started, I was like, "This is how it's gonna be." Like, "This
Mhm.
is my style. This is what I'm selling." And to learn to be flexible and maybe make some things or sell some things you didn't think. I didn't think I'd be selling stickers, but here I am. I'm a sticker seller.
Yeah,
And it allows me to be creative and in other ways and not worry about making the rent. Like
right,
it's just be flexible
right.
and give it time. Like I think people like will hop into it and it's a very cyclical business. And if you hop it into it at a strange time of the year, you could be like, well, this is nothing. Well, it takes a second to get enough inventory in there to give people choices and
Right.
then to get them through your booth. So I would say like if you're going to do it, to give yourself, I would say a year and say,
Mhm.
I'm going to do this for a year. It is going to be a cycle and be flexible and not so.
Like, don't think that you're gonna run out of the gates making millions, you know?
Yes, that's correct. Yes,
Yes, yes, and, because at any vendor booth location, there's so many other people to pick and choose from as well,
right.
and so you definitely want to stand out for, like, your uniqueness, but realize that, yes, you have to figure out what your niche is, and you're gonna definitely figure that out by, I would say, within a year, and it might not be you, it might be the location, like, I've said that in my past podcasts that sometimes the locations are just not the greatest. So you need to find your location where you fit in well.
Right,
So
to find your people, your target customer. Yeah,
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
What is one piece of advice that you'd give someone who is just starting off with a vendor booth?
With a vendor booth,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would say don't overshop. Ask me how I know.
We talk about this all the time too.
Exactly. I would say, like, I had a booth's worth of stuff in my basement before I opened the booth. At least I had an outlet to sell it. But I would say don't overshop. That's the quickest way to lower your profits by having
Right,
all these expenses and not many sales.
right.
So I just took a 3-month fast from thrifting. And boy, it was lovely to say zero on that line item that I keep in my books. $0. Oh, my profit was much better those 3 months.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And I know I wanted to ask this question when we were all talking about the YouTube, but for those that are wanting to start a YouTube channel, what is one tip or word of advice that you can give somebody who is just diving into the YouTube world?
This is something that Because you did let me know a couple of these questions ahead of time.
Yeah. I don't want to trick her, you guys. So I
Right.
do kind of tell her some of these questions. So she has a moment, to like think about it.
So I did think about this one, and I thought about it in a way like, what would I have said to myself, my younger self from 3 whole years ago? Because it does feel like a different version of myself.
Right.
I would say to know your why. Why are you doing this? Are you doing this to build your business? Are you doing this because it's an outlet? Are you doing this because you want to make a bunch of money? Are you doing this because you want to make a difference? Because it is not overnight success for everybody. And if you don't remember your why, you'll start comparing yourself and
Mhm.
you can be like, wait a second, that was not why I did this. So I would say, know your why because you will compare. You will see other people where it looks like it's overnight success. You don't know the whole story, but
Right.
it looks that way. And you start to say, well, what is it about me? I would say make a schedule and be consistent because there will be plenty of weeks where you're like, oh, why does it doesn't even matter. Nobody's even watching. Are you doing this for them or are you doing this for you? Again, back
Mhm.
to that why. Don't quit. You will be a different creator 3 years from now, is what I would tell my former self. Like,
Yeah.
I look at my first couple of videos and want to cringe. But a lot of people are like, well, I can't hit record until I'm completely ready. You're never going to be completely ready. Everybody has to have those beginning videos where they cringe because every time you upload another one, you get better. You get
Mhm.
better and more confident. You get better at your editing. You get better at your creating. But you have to start somewhere. So I would say just start.
Right.
And then the last thing I would say is just get the good ring light.
Oh yeah.
Like, spend some money on a big, good ring light. Don't waste your money on the junk because you're going to go through them. Just do it. Invest in yourself. Get a good ring light and go, whether you feel like you're ready or not.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Great words of advice.
Thank
And
you.
that can apply to a vendor booth too. I mean, like really know your why of, why you want to do this. So I love
Exactly.
it. Well,
Exactly.
good. Well, your business has grown so much from the very first time that we've met. And I honestly cannot wait to see where you grow in the future. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today. But tell my viewers, where can they find you to be as inspired as I am?
Thank you so much for having me. Again, a little nervous, but it just feels like I'm talking to my friend, which I love.
Yeah.
Createyourowncozy.com. I have a website where I sell DIY products, JRV and IOD. And then I have a booth in Cumming, Georgia. And I have a booth in Dawsonville, Georgia. And then I'm also on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest because you're having us be on all those platforms.
Okay, okay. That's awesome. Yes.
Yes,
Well, I'm not having you. I encourage
it's
you
good for
because
our business to be
it
on all the platforms.
it is. It
Yes.
is. Yes. Yes. Well, thank you so much for being part of my podcast today. And I love that my viewers, had the opportunity to meet you and just truly see how talented you really are. So,
Thank you.
but yeah, so that's a wrap up of this week, guys. In next week's episode, I'm going to be talking about why I decided not to do Cranberry Fest and why I decided to host my own event in October. I know, and that Heather is going to be a part. So, if you guys are listening on any of the podcast episodes or podcast platforms, I should say, don't forget to hit rate it, review it, and hit that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on an episode. And then you guys can find me on all the platforms too that Heather just mentioned, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, you name it. I'm out there at Sonnets Garden Blooms, where I post a ton more content each and every day. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast, and we will see you next week. Bye.